Hey everybody, it's Eddie J on crypto for growmybag.tv. Hope you're having a good one. What's good, what's good, what's good? So we know, excuse the noise, I got some work going on, yes, late at night because they're trying to finish. So here's the deal. Market is going completely sideways. And tomorrow we get the FOMC minutes. I'm pretty sure that's what we're waiting for. Pretty doggone sure that's what we're waiting for. So for me, sprinkle, sprinkle. That happens on a weekly basis. And then I just sit back and wait and study. What am I studying? I'm studying stocks. I'm studying cryptos. I'm studying where I think I can make the most amount of money in the shortest period of time. High risk, right? To me, that's a high risk strategy, no doubt, right? And give me a sec. And I consider it high risk because short time frame, trying to get everything in by the end of the year, figured out what tax is going to be like, is what it is. Tonight's question, before I get to the rest of the news, tonight's question: is strategy positioned well enough to survive 2026? If you watch this morning's show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Is strategy positioned to weather the storm that I think is coming in 2026? I have my thoughts. I want to know yours. I absolutely want to know yours. Whether it's yes, no, I'm not sure, I want to talk about it. I want to know what's on your mind. I know what's on my mind. And I want to open the floor up to that discussion. Until then, we've got some news. A company called Grok, G-R-O-Q, is being bought by NVIDIA. My man, Rick Ritchie. What's up? Thank you for letting us know you invested in yourself. And you think yes. Let me get through the news, and then we're going to have that conversation because I really do want to understand what people's thoughts are. I know what my thoughts are. I kind of know what the risks are that I've evaluated, and I definitely want to have that conversation. So Grok is an AI play. And I don't know if you've noticed, but it seems to me that NVIDIA is basically hedging their bets. $5 billion, a $5 million investment into Intel. Remember when Intel was the number one chip maker? Yeah. So they've invested $5 billion in Intel. And and then NVIDIA's buying out this other company for $20.6 billion. Grok, AI play. And it's a twofold kind of thing. Not only do they get Grok, they license all that stuff, but they also get the key players at Grok. They join NVIDIA. With these two plays, NVIDIA positions itself so that if these big AI plays screw up, run afoul, or otherwise hit a decline, Intel is going to make money through other means. In other words, what they're doing is they're positioning themselves to take a hit. They are positioning themselves to take a hit. Why am I talking about AI? I'm talking about AI because it's going to drastically affect our bags. Whether we choose to believe so or not, AI is already affecting our bags, right? And you should understand or have a deeper understanding about what's going on in that space. the big moves, the players, large and small, all of that. I think there are a couple of big players that are not positioned well. I'm looking at you, OpenAI. I'm looking at your competitors, right? And the reason why I'm looking at them is because their business models are flawed. They have one way of making money. NVIDIA's like, we have additional ways of making money, and we're going to lay that groundwork now. They've released their own software, their own LLMs. They've released the recipes for you to actually work with those LLMs to retrain them on what you want them to learn, all that good stuff. They're making moves. They want to distance themselves, or at least present a case to the street that says, if they go down, we still have a business. That's a big play. Yeah, I'm looking for my pen. I don't know where it is. Oops. That's a really big play when you stop and think about it. Because if OpenAI goes on a downturn, that means more companies are going for local resources, meaning local implementations. Because I can tell you now, small businesses can't afford to be paying these monthly fees all the freaking time. So they're calling companies like mine to go set up infrastructures for them and even create solutions for them so they can manage things locally, not worry about giving their data to these big companies that will just use their data in their models. If that happens, OpenAI and others will take a hit. NVIDIA won't. Right? Think about how that works. So people won't be buying huge or mass quantities of chips, but they'll still get mass quantities of chip sales anyway. Why? Because that's what people will be buying to implement locally. And Intel wants to be set up for that. I mean, NVIDIA wants to be set up for that. That's kind of a big deal, especially when you think about how many people are leveraging, AI to help them with trading. Aha. Now you're sitting there going, oh, now I see where he's going. Yeah. I told you guys a while ago, I built an agent that will help me perform analytics on analytics, tokenomics, however you want to look at it, depending if you're talking about stocks, bonds, cryptos, options, whatever, and tell me about it. I've got another module that we're almost done with that will enable me to do business management research, meaning I'm thinking about buying this company, or a client of mine is thinking about buying this company, and I will be able to punch that company in, give it a little bit of data, and it will go out, find competitors, find information about that company, and come back to me with a dossier. Nice, right? Yeah. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. And the reason why is because we don't want our data. We don't want to give our data to OpenAI. We don't want to give our data to Google. We don't want to give our data to anybody. Anthropic, Perplexity, name one. That's not what we want to do. So you're talking about situations where you have companies spending thousands of dollars a month and ponying up their data. Even though it's said, oh, well, no, we don't do anything with your data. We promise we don't. I don't trust that. I'm not alleging that they do something wrong. I just don't trust it. You want to know why I don't trust it? Because a while ago, social media platforms said, oh, we don't do anything with your data. But then as you traverse the internet, you had mentioned to your friend that you were going to go on vacation to like Oahu. Or you're going to go skiing, Lake Tahoe. And all of a sudden you're starting to see suitcase ads. And you're like, huh? But we don't do anything with your data. So we got burned. We got burned. And a lot of companies are starting to recall, holy moly, we got burned. Either we got burned or we were one of the companies that was able to leverage access to that data. Either way, I think that's where it's going. I really do think that's where it's going, and I think people should be awake about that. So companies that are calling us up have a couple of things in mind. We don't want our data going out into the street. As far as I'm concerned, as far as my team is concerned, there's no such thing as taking my data, sharing it over here to get some answers, coming back with some good stuff probably. Let's just run with it's coming up with the best stuff. And us taking the chance that that data is not going to be used in some way, shape, or form. We have issues even leveraging GitHub. Everybody uses GitHub, except all the time you're hearing about how hackers are using GitHub and fake, accounts and getting people to download malware. Oh, this tool is great for you. Nah. We know what we're putting on GitHub and we know what we're not putting on GitHub. That's the deal. So yeah, when I look at these companies and I look at NVIDIA and how they're moving, I'm starting to think about what other plays are there out there, right? What other pin plays can happen? Because they're not going to be the only ones. And it got me also thinking that I've been thinking about for a while that I shared with you guys is you're going to start to see projects start to play in the same sandbox. How long is it before that partnership turns into a merger or acquisition? That's what's on my mind. And I'm starting to see a lot of these little things pop up that tell me companies, teams, projects are looking to make sure that they're still in the game. So when I look back at Grok, G-R-O-Q, different company than that other Grok. When I look at Grok, I look at, wow, NVIDIA just made a huge strategic move. Huge strategic move. And guess what? I'm still looking for any news about Zero Hash. Remember, MasterCard was looking to buy Zero Hash? And I don't know where those talks are. The last big news that we've heard is, MasterCard is looking at acquiring them. But the bigger news besides that has only been they raised $104 million between SoFi and Morgan Stanley. That's it. That would be huge. I told you banks right now have to figure out what it is that makes them a bank. And it can't be crying to the US government about how stablecoin companies and the like shouldn't be allowed to pay out, staking rewards. It can't be that. Because if that's what you're whining about, and believe me, they set up a whole lobbying effort for that. So they're all whining. But if that's what you're whining about, then I absolutely question your viability in the market space. I absolutely question it. Because it says that you have to resort to whining and crying and playing the lobbyist game to keep hold of the business that you have instead of going back to your competitive roots. Right? It's become a four-horse race between the four biggest banks, and everybody else is just you're a bank. Here's what's funny. Some of these regional banks, some of these banks that are slightly larger than regional, think PNC Bank, PNC. They're making moves. They're merging. They're buying. They're trying to make sure that they remain a bank. They're trying to make sure that they remain a bank. They're trying to make moves to ensure their future. When I look at the big banks, I'm kind of like, yeah, I know that the news is saying that the big banks did better than the S&P 500. S&P did like what is on track to do like 15% year to date, and the big four looking around 20. That's cute, right? That's nice. But I don't know how viable you are in the future. Some people will be like, you're crazy. They're totally fine, blah, blah, blah. Do some research on how many resources, how many technology-based resources they have in the United States versus offshore. Start doing some digging on how many H-1B visas they have here versus resources from here. Start to do some research on when they first made the announcement that they're going to get into crypto and when they said they would first have it compared to where they are now. Start paying attention to all of the smaller banks, smaller investment, opportunities that are out there that are nipping at their heels, eating their lunch. What do I need a bank for? What do I need a bank for? A bank is a way for me to tap into the SWIFT network, which enables me to transfer money from bank to bank, thusly paying your bills. That's how that works. Simplistically, right? That's the network that they're on. Then you have that master account that enables it. Yeah. That's what's up. And then you have the rollback of rules and regulations around the banking industry that put us back in that 2007, 2008, 2009 fiasco that happened, because it was a slow rolling, kind of painful thing that we went through back then, right? Yes, it was. And apparently nobody wants to recall that. So they're not paying attention to all of the same things happening now that happened back then. Problem. What does a bank do? What does a bank do? How long is it before you start to see companies start to accept, at the very least, stable coins for payment? I'm thinking it'll probably be Bitcoin, Ethereum, stable coins, right? Off chance, maybe XRP and Solana, because XRP is already inside banks doing that kind of thing. RLUSD is a stable coin, also Ripple. So I think it's going to be a conglomeration of digital assets that will soon be accepted by first larger businesses, then smaller businesses. Does it sound like credit cards to you? Isn't that how it happened? First, the larger businesses started accepting credit cards, and then it started filtering down. That's what happened. So what I'm seeing right now is basically the same thing. I think that's how it's going to play out. We're going to have the large folks say, yeah, we'll take that Bitcoin. We'll take that stable coin. And it'll just start to trickle down. Oh, well, they're doing it. Remember, it took us forever to accept credit cards, and that messed up cash flow. Except here's the difference now. Here's the big difference now. The more we educate small business on accepting digital assets, the more that they start to realize that if they charge $5.99 for a project, they're gonna get the $5.99 for that product, rather, right? $5.99. Not $5.50 because they had to pay tax, or not even pay tax. Pay the credit card company. It's gonna be $5.99. They're not gonna have to wait X amount of time for it to completely clear. No, they're not going to have to wait for that. It'll clear in minutes. They will have their value in minutes, if not seconds, depending on which one they accept. Oh, is that how that works? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So imagine, I'm going to accept stable coins and Bitcoin because it's Bitcoin, but I'm going to accept stable coins, right? Let's just run with the idea that they only do stable coins. I'm going to get my full $5.99. No credit card fees, no waiting. What kind of advantage is that for a small business that has to contend with cash flow? That's immediate cash flow. My sales from today, clear today. Oh, you want that bag of chips? Boo-doo. Have a nice day. That's how that's going to work. As soon as they start to get educated on that, there's not a single company out there that's not going to give it a second thought. That's going to sit there and go, well, I don't want to get back my 1.9 to I think 3.9, 4.9% back from credit card processing. My man Hutanik, thank you for letting us know you invested in yourself. So you start to sit there and you start to realize that and you go, holy moly. Then it just snowballs after that. So again, I go back and I say, hey, bank. I don't know what no M means. Oh, okay. I was about to say, what's M? I was like, I got to look that up. What is that? So, yeah, we're going to have that discussion in a little bit. Give me a moment. No M for you. I get it, though. And I'm not even disagreeing. Totally get it. But as I think about this, I'm just sitting here and I'm saying to myself, so if small businesses, large businesses start accepting digital assets, it's not going to take away fiat. That's not the way it's going to happen. There's enough out there where both can exist. But when that happens, banks are going to take a huge hit. That whole assets under management thing. Wait, well, hold on a minute. I can keep my stable coins over here and I can earn rewards. Yeah, they're trying to fight it, but they ain't win yet. So I can keep my money here and I can earn rewards. Oh. For the more adventurous, you know what they're going to do? Here's the money that I need to actually run my business. Here's the daily number that I need to run the business. I'll take the rest of that and I'll invest it over here and make even more rewards, or just hold these coins because I don't need them right now. Let's suppose that turns into, call it 10%. Call it 10%. Damn. Go to any bank branch and take out 10% of your money. And then I take out 10%. And then she does, and he does, and she does, and she does, and he does. And that branch loses 10% of its deposits. That's going to have an effect on that bank, right? 10% isn't a lot, but that basically causes a run on the bank, even if it's just on a branch. We spoke about this a couple of years ago, right? That's what we were talking about. Hutanik, remember? Rick Ritchie, remember? What happens if that happens? I mean, heck, you don't need to pull out 10%. Everybody could just go to that bank and say, give me $500. Everybody could just go there and say, I'm transferring $500 to someplace else. Banks would choke. My point is that banks need to come up with what it is that makes them worthwhile for our business. Because pretty soon it's not going to be, that's the only way I can pay my bills remotely without going over here, standing online and handing them money. Yeah. Right? That's when you start to get at it. I am watching how nations circumvent or use the dollar in the next year. Yep. And forget about the dollar. Any freaking fiat. What you doing? Because I keep telling you guys, don't just look at what's going on in the United States. Look at what's going on around the world. Look at what's going on around the world. I have an article. Give me a moment. U-cards linked to USDT enable stealth adoption in China via Zhaohongshu, allowing cross-border payments with stablecoins without direct crypto exposure amid China's digital yuan shift and crypto ban policies. I've described to you before about how people with means are getting money outside of China. And here we have this kind of underground thing with U-cards happening in China too. I've been telling you guys for a long time, if countries squeeze too hard, their people will find a way. There you go. And that's by using stable coins. That's not using, the illegal brokers that work with nefarious characters, helps them launder money, helps them get real estate in other countries, helps them get their money out of the country. Here's another way that we're seeing how China could be hemorrhaging money outside the country. See what I mean? Look at the rest of the world and say to yourself, how does that work? Now, it's amazing that Russia goes both ways when it comes to crypto. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they only like it for the people up here, not for everybody else. But what have they been using to circumvent sanctions? The Chinese yuan and renminbi and crypto. Yeah. The world is changing right there, and you don't necessarily realize it until you start to take a look at that bigger picture and look at all these dots that are popping up and start to say to yourself, holy moly, those dots, some of these dots should be grouped. Some of these dots should be grouped, and you start to realize, wow, the world is changing right in front of us. Some of us are awake, some of us are curious and doing the research because we believe in the GMB3, right? Do your own research. Know your entries and exits, and absolutely invest deliberately. First investment is right here. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying to myself, well, gee, I guess we better figure this out. And again, I point back to banks and say, how are you going to figure it out? Hey, A+, thank you for letting us know you invested in yourself. And yes, happy Monday. So I'm still trying to understand, why are people still sleeping? Let's run with the idea that you don't believe in digital assets. You don't want to be involved in digital assets. You should still be knowledgeable about what's going on, right? Right? Just saying. It's sort of like, I don't know my neighbors around the corner and down the block. Or maybe I do and I just don't like them. But they just sold their house for a lot of money. And I would only know that if I'm paying attention. So I could see my property value go up, right? That's how that works. So I'm just saying. So 8 did you watch The Big Short and think that this is going on right now? Seriously. Dead serious. I look at The Big Short and I'm like, that's going on right now. I watched Too Big to Fail. I think that's going on right now. You don't think those conversations are happening? Banks had already tapped into that repo market, that repo thing that happened last week. Banks have already tapped into it. $16 billion worth. How scary is that? What we're literally talking about right now is not if, it's when. It's not if, it's when. When the fan gets obliterated, and how are we positioned to handle it? What's going to be our port in the storm? Some people think I'm nuts. Eddie, you don't know what you're talking about. People come at me in the comments like all the time. Sometimes I pay attention, sometimes I don't. Unless they're making that comment on growmybag.tv, I pay no mind. I mean, unless they're being rude to somebody or being bullies, then we just ditch them. We just kick them out. My man Hom's house, GMB3. Thank you for letting us know you invested in yourself. But sometimes I look at people that come at me and I'm just like, wow, you are full chested with it. Oh, sometimes you got to respect that. Might need hard cap. Do you mean hard cap? Hard cap cryptos? I'm looking at the keyboard to see what else you could have meant with instead of hard cap. I don't know. You mean high cap? I don't know. But yeah, crypto's gold, silver. That would be something else. I'm looking at small businesses, BTC. You're recommending BTC, ADA, XRP are hard capped. No, that's not what you mean. That is not what you mean. You don't mean hard cap. That's not a thing. What you mean is they have a finite number of coins. That's what you mean, right? Because nobody's going to understand what hard cap means. Because cap is market capitalization is what most people are going to be thinking about. That's why I got confused. But yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. I don't know that I would be... Let me think about that. I had to stop and think about it because I have a nice size bag of ADA. I have a nice size bag of XRP. I've got a nice size bag of BTC, right? And others. But if I was going in now, would I buy Cardano? And my answer is probably no. If I'm already in it, I'll DCA, but it's not going to be on the same DCA schedule as other coins that I have. And I know some people are sitting there clutching their pearls. I know they are. Mike Novogratz has a point. I was talking about it this morning. Mike Novogratz has a point. Cardano needs to show me the value. They need to show the world the value. Everything is so highly technical on what they're doing, and then it's going to allow them to do this, and it's going to allow them to do that. It's going to open this up, and I get it. But if that doesn't translate into clear, crystal freaking value for everybody else out there, it means nothing. It means nothing. For us long-term holders, it just means what it means is it'll go up just because things normally go up. And it'll go up and, we'll make a couple of bucks off of it and we'll keep it moving. But for those that are trying to get in, that are looking for a quicker hit, I'm going to tell you right now, a quicker hit would be if I'm removing XRP out of the picture because it's very unique. But just looking at ADA, if I'm looking at immediate hit, I'm probably going to look at Solana first. Solana, BNB, even XRP, Ethereum. Cardano is not doing a good job in terms of marketing what it's capable of. That's what I mean. So yeah, that's a problem for us. Not shilling, but I'm liking what I'm learning about Night so far. I know you're not shilling, and thank you for letting us know that you're doing that. You're literally telling us what you're researching. Got it. But that's what I mean. I've got to go dig deep about Knight. And then I have questions about what the heck with Knight versus Cardano. Oh, they go hand in hand, they work together. There's no clear statement for a new person that's coming in. And let me tell you something, we're going to have an influx of new people coming in. Retail. Us. And they have not made a good play for this is what we can do. They're kind of just out there doing stuff in general. What does it mean? No, Hutanic, no, absolutely not. I 100% disagree with you, sir. Yes, I have looked at ADA DeFi. Don't care. Hear me out. Don't get mad. Hear me out. I don't care because, yes, we can figure it out. Those of us that have been doing the research, been digging in, we can figure it out. We could probably make a good statement, but that's not our job. We're investors. I'm not here to buy into your tech. I'm here to buy into my investment. And if you really stop and think about it, Cardano has not done a good job at talking about my investment. This is why Cardano is better than everybody else. This is what we can do. This is how we stack up against this blockchain versus our blockchain. This is how our ecosystem stacks up against other ecosystems. Break that down so like a 2-year-old can understand it. If you watch Too Big to Fail, you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's the Jeremy Irons line. He literally breaks it down for you. He literally breaks down the 5 key points that you need to make so that somebody can understand whatever it is that you're talking about. What's the problem? What's the impact? What's the cost? How can I solve it? How soon can I have it done? And you start to realize, holy moly, you know what? Cardano's not doing that. They're off playing their technical game. Before, I wasn't upset about it. I'm still a part of the Cardano army. I still love Cardano. I still love XRP. But XRP is doing a far better job at explaining, well, what does XRP do? What's the difference between XRP and RLUSD? RLUSD is going to be able to open up doors that XRP cannot to stablecoin. And XRP is going to be used to actually not necessarily move value, can move value, but it's going to move data, different kinds of value. There's a difference. Solana is exactly the opposite of ADA. I'm going to let everybody else read that. No, I'm going to read it. Solana is exactly the opposite of ADA, poor tech with backing. ADA is good tech with no backing. In a nutshell, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. I mean, I'd probably go as far as saying it's great tech, but that's just me. I'm biased. But Cardano can handle more. Cardano is secure. It's efficient. It's dependable. It's decentralized. If I was going to trust a blockchain, I'd be like, I'm going to work with ADA. But do you see ADA going out there and having conversations with Anthony Scaramucci so he could stop kissing Solana's butt and start going, maybe I need to get my hands on some ADA because they really have it going on? Yeah, that's what I'd be talking about. That's what I'd be doing. I want that. I want the Cardano environment to go start to get out there and start telling that story. There's no reason in the world why ADA can't be in the top 5. Now, I will tell you this. At some point, we're going to have to separate. We're going to have to separate regular digital assets versus stable coins. Because if you think about it, stable coins can only grow. Their market cap can only raise up. Mathematically, stablecoins can surpass everybody. Yes, including Bitcoin. I mean, it would be a stupidly long time, but the more commerce that happens with a stablecoin, the more they have to, yeah, that could happen. They go up. And you're starting to see stablecoins that are bumping into the top 25, bumping into the top 10, top 15. You start to see that. But Mike Novogratz has a point. We are not... I'm not here to make the case for ADA. I'm not here to make the case for them. I'm not here for you to make the case for them. The statement is about them making the case to the regular people. To regular people just getting involved. Why should I invest in ADA? Because remember, I can't use it right now. I can't go to a store and pay for something right now. So what's the dealio? The dealio is, well, that means it's an investment. So if it's an investment, I have an expectation for return on investment, right? And the reason why I'm going down this road with you guys is because I keep telling you guys, there's going to be a culling. There's going to wind up being a point where projects are going to start to fall off or get taken over. Call it the Great Awakening. But you start to realize that, wow, things are moving in a way that we've got to start paying more attention to those kind of details. I don't need one of my friends telling me, oh, well, this is what's up with Cardano. I don't need you giving me the lesson. I need Cardano to give the lesson. There are other projects out there that are not doing the same thing, projects that are really good that have fallen by the wayside. Algorand, Polkadot, Arbitrum. You could even say Optimism. They're not going anywhere right now, but they're not making it happen. Something's in my eye. So if they're not going to make it happen, then what? So for me, I'm looking for projects that are going to be able to give me a return on investment that I can see in the foreseeable future. Not that, well, this is a long-term investment. I'm going to wait and, we'll see what happens. Nah, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. Can I make 10% within the next 2 weeks? Yay, nay. What can I make 10%? I mean, heck, I'm really looking for within the week. Can I make 10%? Quick trades. We're moving laterally right now. Quick trades. We're either going to consolidate right here and explode up. Excuse me. Or we're going to consolidate right here and go down a bit. And there are arguments for both. There are arguments for both. So you start to realize, well, I've got to start weighing things. People are losing their jobs. What happens when people lose their jobs? They get into real estate. Real estate is not an option anymore, is it? I hit a sore spot. Remember what everybody, when they, that was their jump off. That was their side thing. That was their side hustle. I'm going to do real estate on the side. I do real estate on the weekends and blah, 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 blah. That used to be a thing. I'll go try to sell cars on the weekend. That used to be a thing. It's not now. It's not now. Hutanik, we'd have to sit down and discuss that. He thinks that if I was going to buy a business, it would take 5 years to turn a profit. I think you're absolutely wrong on that point. Some cryptos are business tools. Some are stores of value. And I can tell you exactly why that first sentence is absolutely wrong. Because I can buy a business right now and turn a profit day one. day one. That's not brag. That's fact. I could turn a profit day one. And some people are sitting there going, how the heck would you turn a profit day one? Oh, well, because you come up with a buy number. You let the current owner hold the note, meaning they're loaning you the money to buy the business. They're holding the note, and you pay them X amount of money per month until it's paid off within a certain time frame. And the way you set that up is you're able to pay them off, and you get to wet your beak. If those numbers don't work, you don't buy that business. But those numbers, that strategy works. That strategy absolutely works. Times are different. I'm in that business all the time. Yeah, no, you said turn a profit. You said turn a profit. You didn't say paying off your investment. You said turn a profit. Big difference, isn't there? Big difference, isn't there? Uh-huh. And that's day one. I haven't, hooked up the business or anything, modernized it or anything else like that. No, that's not true. Is if you don't have any out of pocket, you're in profit. I have a loan, that's right. But if I'm putting positive cash flow in my pocket, profit. That's profit. I'm paying my bills and I'm putting money in my pocket. That is called profit. You're thinking, I take out a loan, I have a 30-year loan or 10-year loan, 5-year loan, 2-year loan, whatever it is. It's not profit until I pay that off. Nope. It's profit when you get to put money in your pocket. In New York, the formula was, I'm going to go buy a building. I'm going to make money off that building. And then after I make money off that building, I start showing cash flow on that building. I flip it and go buy another building. Now I have 2 buildings doing the same thing. Let that run for a little while. Take that equity, go get another building. It's not necessarily about paying off the loan. You have a totally different idea. And I'll tell you now, that's not how PE firms will operate. So yeah, I do this for a living. That's part of the business that we have. I understand where you're coming from. I completely understand where you're coming from. I absolutely understand how you're thinking about it. But if I've got positive cash flow in my wallet and they're happy because that loan is getting paid every month, I'm yanking profit. I'm already cash flow positive on my investment. Moving on. Now, what happens if I walk in the door and the way you were running your business was inefficient and I introduce more efficiencies? Now I'm making even more money. Now I turn around and I go, this is how much money we're really making, and I go sell it. They pay me, I pay you off, they own the business now. Moving on. I was able to do all of that with damn near no money down. Or no money down. What happens when they call loans like they did in 2008? You're mixing things. You're absolutely mixing things. You're not calling a loan. That's not now paperwork. You're the former owner. You're holding the note. There's nothing in there that says you can call that loan at any time. That's the whole point of you holding the note. And there's your business advice for the day. Next question is strategy positioned well enough to survive 2026? 14 votes. 71% say yes. 21% say no. And some people want to talk about it. Let's talk about it. Strategy's average price is $75,000 on their Bitcoin. Hutanik, I'm going to say it one more time. If you're selling your business and you decide that you're going to hold a note, you're going to hold the loan for that person to buy your business, and there are reasons why people do that, then there's 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, there's nothing in that document that says you get to quote unquote call the loan. Understand what I'm saying? We're not talking about big business or banks and anything else like that. That's not what we're talking about. That's not the conversation. Don't mix the two. We're talking about, here's a deli. They're willing to hold the note so that this person can buy that business. And they decide, here's the number that you're going to pay me every month for the next 3 years. Great. Because they're basing their number based on how they ran their business before. And this person is walking in the door knowing that they've identified 5 different places where they'd be able to increase efficiency, thusly increase income, pay them, pay all the bills, and put money in their pocket. Cash flow positive. You still have a loan, but you are cash flow positive, and they can't call the loan. And why would you? If you could have sold that business for one nut, then you would have done it. If you could have done that, then you would have done that, but you couldn't. So this is the next best thing. And right now in the United States, you're seeing a complete influx of business owners that are in that position. The kids don't want the business, or they don't have kids to take over the business, and they're trying to figure out how to continue making money off that business after they get out for a couple of years. Here's a way to have monthly cash flow for a few years, and then, okay, all done. That's what we're talking about. Yes, the old way of buying properties won't work today. Exactly, it won't work today. Folks are going to have a hard time paying rent. Folks are going to have a huge hard time paying rent. Now, here's something else that, again, they're not thinking about. If you keep raising rents, but you keep not hiring people, offshoring jobs, importing resources, not paying your people enough, did you hear that list that I just rattled off? I'm not going to be able to afford rent. I'm not going to be able to afford car insurance, health care, whatever the other things come with owning a home, renting an apartment, all that stuff. I'm not going to be able to afford it. I can barely afford to eat. These businesses have not figured out enough, and they for a whole bunch of smart people, they really do sound a little bit stupid, right? That they're not sitting there and saying to themselves, we're going to start eating our own tails. How are we going to make money if these people can? Because your demographic is here. Your demographic isn't in India. It's not in Bangladesh. It's not in all these places where you're outsourcing jobs. Your demographic is here. And if you and all your wealthy buddies aren't hiring people, I'm done. How long is it that your business is going to stay in business? Your stock price will drop. What's going on, Enrique? Thank you for letting us know you invested in yourself. Your stock price is going to drop because that cash flow stopped. Why did that cash flow stop? How come people can't afford to pay the bills? I went on a tirade this morning. The top 10% account for 50% of the money being spent. And the other 90% is spending the other 50%. And it keeps going like that. You think it's going to turn into 9%, 9%, 91%? No, it's going to be 11%, 12%. And this number is going to continue to drop. Because down here, we're losing jobs. We're losing jobs overseas. We're losing jobs here. We're going through a great reset where these companies think that they can fire everybody and bring in new people that cost less, and that's going to be good for them. Something else I mentioned this morning is they're not paying attention to H-1B visa people learning that coming to the United States is not what it used to be. It's overly expensive now. I have a lot of friends that are like, I'm going home. It's too expensive. I can't come here and make really good money and be able to send a lot of money back home. It's like I come here, make a lot of good money, and I have to spend it all just to be here. That negates the purpose of coming here. Yeah. Companies are not thinking. They're not thinking at all. They're being really, really stupid. They're not being strategic. They're thinking as far as they can follow the dollar or their fiat. Stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid. But now, back to strategy. Is strategy positioned to weather the storm in 2026? Most of us say yes. A couple of people said no, and one person said, I don't know yet. Let's talk about that. So to me, I think that their buying happens, and they're at 75,000. Are they happy that they're only 12,000 up? No, they're not. But in terms of the Bitcoin that they're holding, they're making a couple of bucks, right? Even if some people said, well, you could have bought into something else and you'd have been doing great. No, Hutanik, I know you're being contrarian. Thank you. So if that's what I'm doing, but you got to stay on topic though. You can't compare private loans to bank loans. Totally different. Totally different. It's a different world. But when I'm looking at strategy, $75,000 average, how much are the loans that they got for buying more and more and more and more and more Bitcoin? And they have, 1 point something billion or 2 point something billion sitting on the side as a reserve. And yet their stock price is still getting hammered. What? I think they're absolutely positioned to weather the storm. Their holdings are worth more than the business that they have, right? So if they're holding, Bitcoin is one of their holdings. I'm short on Sailor Strategy. That's interesting. I don't disagree. You see numbers that I'm not seeing, or you're seeing numbers in a different time span that I'm looking at. For me, I look at strategy as long term. No, I do not hold any strategy right now or any one of their stocks, options, bonds, anything like that. But when I look at strategy as a business, there's so many other businesses that I can hammer on other than strategy. Can I make short-term money on strategy going short on them? Yeah, I can. Absolutely. Absolutely. But in the long term, I think it's going to be fine. I think they're going to come out and they will blow people's minds. I think that's where they're positioned. Rick Ritchie says strategy has enough capital for a few years, and they bought more BTC today. Yep. And they will leverage either BTC or strategy to short to make their money. Yep. I think strategy is beyond oversold. Beyond oversold. Right? They hold more Bitcoin than they're currently worth via stock. And I just sit there and just go, what is on people's minds? They're in the best position. When I look at other treasury firms, I'm like, is that what you're doing? Came into the market too late, bought when the market was high. Now they're all freaking drowning because Bitcoin took a hit. Not all of them, but a lot of them are drowning because Bitcoin took a hit. But strategy is hitting it because strategy turned orange, the whole thing. So they're taking the brunt of it. And I'm like, if I was in the mood to buy stock, I would buy strategy. I would absolutely buy strategy. Because it's going to hit the trampoline and it's just going to boom. And then the jets will turn on. If you have a belief that Bitcoin does, let's say Bitcoin doesn't do 250 until 2030. It's still like, what, 3x? A 2x from here, the GMB X factor would be like what, 2x or something like that? I'm just like, are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm down with that. I'm down with strategy. Now, if you're going to expand this conversation to include others, oh, they've got problems. They've got massive problems. Strategy doesn't have that problem. Strategy will not have that problem until Bitcoin hits 75. And even then, strategy's got reserve. I'm just saying. Strategy's got leverage to make things work. It's the other treasury firms that I'd be wondering about. That's what I would be wondering about. If you want people to understand what NAV is, please spell it out. So when I look at strategy, I'm like, yeah, no, they're absolutely positioned to weather 2026 perfectly fine. But they should not be held up as an example for other treasuries. Because I don't think there's a single treasury that is in their position. Not a single one. Not a single one. Now, strategy has something on their side that, you know, they get to truly pin their hopes on. And that's the fact that they weathered the storm before and they came out way ahead. They're still ahead. If they have to weather the storm again, I believe that they will weather the storm again. And what adds to this is the fact that there's so much infrastructure built already. There's so many implementations that have happened already. So many implementations that are happening and that are going to happen. That puts strategy in a different driver's seat than everybody else. I asked this question specifically tonight so that people would start to look at all of the treasury firms. Some they might be holding, some that they might not be holding. And they can start to look at those and start to go, oh, okay, let me start thinking about that. The whole ADA thing, yes, I still believe that ADA needs to make a case. But when you compare ADA to Solana and you realize that companies are investing in Solana, but you're not seeing a huge amount of development. Cardano has an opportunity right now to get institutional implementation. Something that Solana is still lacking. They have a little bit. But I think if Cardano comes along and really makes a case, I think they make it happen. Yeah, Rick Ritchie's reasoning behind it is spot on. It's the same thing that I was thinking. We probably just got there in two different ways, but same thing I was thinking. You just realize, holy moly. You start to realize we've got to start paying a little bit more attention. We can't just scratch the surface on article titles. We've got to read the articles. We've got to dig deeper, find corroborating information. We really do need to increase our research. It's painful to even say it, but even Jim Cramer agrees with me. Research is your friend. Do your own research, know your entries and exits, and absolutely invest deliberately. Anyway, everybody, this is Eddie Joe on Crypto for GrowMyBag.tv. I hope you like what I'm doing. If you do me a favor, smash the likes. It helps us to grow. That's number one. Number two, if you want to become a member, go over to GrowMyBag.tv, become a member. It's only $12 a year. If you want to be a big bagger and get deep into some conversations, that's only $120 a year. And yes, we are talking to others to have their conversations, their groups, their investment groups also on Grow My Bag. We've got a lot more things coming, folks. A lot more. If you want to see the rest of the news that I was going to speak about tonight, I didn't get to it all, but you can go to growmybag.tv and see those articles too. Everybody, as always, thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. And most importantly, thank you for your trust. Everybody have a great night. See you tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. for the daily. Have a good one. Bye-bye.